better job in remembering its history. But that has become more important than ever with generational turnover, and Norifumi Yamamoto is an absolutely central figure in the history of mixed martial arts. You may say, how can that be if there are some fans today who've never heard of him? Well, because the sport grew up at a complicated time. But believe you me, Norifumi Yamamoto, informally known as Kid, was an absolute legend. Here's how big a deal he was. At one time in his career, some might have considered him to be, if not the pound for pound best fighter in the sport, certainly at the top of the list. He was an absolute rock star in Japan and in the MMA world. When he fought Masato in kickboxing, even though he had a wrestling background and was an MMA fighter, he fought another legendary Japanese fighter in kickboxing, and it did 34 million people in terms of viewership. When was the last time a UFC event did 34 million people watching, even on pay-per-view? I mean, that is a staggering statistic. We're talking about inside of Japan and inside of the MMA world and probably Asia, anywhere that MMA touched at all, rock star. And he had these incredible wins. When you watched this guy compete, he had a right hand of death. He came up in some of the most important organizations in the history of Japanese and frankly MMA history. And I have to tell you, he came up inside of Japan at a time when Japan was the center of the universe inside mixed martial arts. He came up through Shuto, he came up through K1 Heroes, and if you only knew him from the UFC, and if you only knew of him from what I'm telling you now, you just need to take one lesson away. Norifumi Yamamoto, despite being 5'3" and 141 pounds, maybe wet and wearing boots, is one of the most important and greatest talents this sport has ever seen.